So if it sounds good, let's begin. Private message. Everybody's saying good. So let's just start then. So welcome to an edition of Yogi to Yogi, where we're going to share practice tips from somebody asks, what is the TMY view on Shankara Prakshalana and fasting? TMY view is the view of primal Ayurveda when it comes to health questions, concerning health questions that relate to yoga, spiritual work, the same as primal Ayurveda. So, if you're not familiar with it, it's a method of cleansing the GI tract from top to bottom using warm, salty water, drunk in cycles of warm, salty water, followed by about 5 asana, and then you try to poo. And if nothing comes out, you drink the salty water again. It's quite a lot of water. Do the asana, try to poo. And this goes on over and over again until eventually water's coming out. When the water first comes out, it'll be with feces a lot, very brown and so forth, smelly, whatever. Eventually, the water gets down to water in, water out. Not that I would drink it, but it's pretty clear. So this is what is meant by the yogic practice of Shankara Prakshalana and fasting. So Elodie wants to know, what is the view on that? Well, always the view is for whom and when. For what that person's age is, strength is, history of health and disease, doshic constitution, their prakriti, their doshic constitution. If a lot of this is going over your head and you're new to Ayurveda, we just scheduled an Ayurveda basic training for people to start to understand all of this kind of stuff and apply it in a lifestyle. And then following that, later this year, I'll come out with the dates for the Light Body Healing Program, in which you will get, as far as I'm programming it right now, a very, very, very in-depth, from a tantric perspective of the body in Ayurveda, 100-hour course on Ayurveda within the 3-year program of Light Body Healing. The first year will be a lot of Ayurveda, but not just Ayurveda. So Shankara Prakshalana is this cleansing practice. It's meant for really powerful yogins. When I first went to learn Ayurveda, first I studied Tantric Yoga. Tantric Yoga made so much reference to Ayurveda that naturally led me to ask my gurus about Ayurveda, and they had a pretty good knowledge of it. But they gave me the Ayurveda that was for yogins. I found this out because when I went to learn from other Ayurvedic doctors, they said, oh, that stuff you're talking about, like cleansing with Shankara Prakshalana and fasting, that's great for yogins. That's for yogi medicine, but you can't do that for normal people. I was like, huh. So they started to tell me, make me a little bit more aware of just how, I was younger when I started studying this stuff, and I didn't know how strong I was in my mind and my body. And they were saying, look, not everybody's going to have this kind of constitutional strength or trained strength from yoga training, meditation, martial arts, whatever, sports. And also on top of it, to be older or frail or have certain genetic predispositions, certainly, or, a history of disease which damaged some organs or tissues and made things difficult. So you can't put people through all of these type of harsher cleansing methods. Prakshalana is like, Shankara Prakshalana is like the Ayurvedic, or not Ayurvedic, the yogic version of colonic irrigation, in my opinion. It's pretty strong. So when I first did it with my first yoga master, who was a student under my teacher, but a full acharya, you did this full thing and you cleaned out and you felt fantastic, but you had to ease back into food very slowly over a number of days, while it was said that the wall of your lining was built up again. The lining of your digestive system was built up again very slowly. And I see what they mean. It's very powerful. And it took a long time eating very, very mild baby food kind of thing, like milk, dal, and ghee. That was all there was for like days. I mean, dal with no spice, just lentil, milk, and ghee for days. So it's what I want to say to you, Elodie, and everybody else listening, is that this method of yogic cleansing is very strong. It's very rough. It can induce a lot of vata if not handled absolutely correctly. You have to be right on it. You have to do it in a warm environment, but not hot. You have to get the right temperature on the water and the salt and do it just right, so that someone experienced should be guiding you, so that you're not straining your system. You're not over drinking the water. You're not overdoing the asana. You're not taking too much time between the water and the asana. not taking too much time, but drinking water again. This kind of thing. It's very interesting. And you have to do the right thing about getting the food in you immediately after you finish, so that you get some grounding back into that system right away. Otherwise, you get vata drain. The wind element of vata, space and wind, will get elevated very quickly in open space, because the home of vata is the large intestine, is the lower belly, large intestine, the hips, and so on. That's where the space and wind element is supposed to reside healthily in a body. So when you go and clear it all out, you make too much space. It's excessive space, and it will definitely aggravate the vata a little bit for a moment or two, until you start to feed the warm, soothing, heavier, fatty-based, ghee, milk, dal kind of diet right away to compensate for that. So there's a lot of rules around it. So the view is in Trikamasa Yoga is for whom and when. So if someone needs Shankar Prakshalana, then they should do it for sure. If somebody needs fasting, they should do it for sure. I definitely am an advocate of intermittent fasting, and I'm definitely an advocate of fasting a half a day or 1 day every week or two. I think it's one of the best things you can do. Stimulate the autophagy from a biological perspective. When you fast and no food's going through, without herbs or anything, your system tonifies itself. The immune system in the intestine is very important for health of the human being. The biome is very, very important, as we know now. So when you're fasting, autophagy or self-eating happens, meaning the weakened cells are digested by the body, and fresh new cells are brought into place and grow and so forth. And all the cells divide and everything gets stronger and healthier, newer and younger. That's a very important process, and that happens regularly. So as far as fasting goes, I definitely am an advocate of, as I said, a half a day to a full day or a full day and a half of fasting once per week or once every 2.5 weeks. I'd recommend that a lot. That's in the Trika method diet as well. So these are the views for whom and when, right? It would be too long to say for whom and when, to put out all the conditions that would say when it's right for whom and when it's right for when and so on. We'll leave that to the advanced Body of Light Healing course and the Intro to Ayurveda coming up. Okay. Your second question, Elodie. In Trikamasa Yoga, do we use Panchakosha theory or the Tantric 5-layered self as a map, or we drop both? Okay. Tantric Kosha theory or 5 map, whatever. I wrote you a message to ask what you were talking about, because there are so many different theories out there. You didn't see it. Okay. There's a lot of different theories out there about layers of the body. The Vedantic layers of the body view, which people say is Tantra and other people say it's Vedanta, but I've never seen evidence for it in the Tantras. I'm pretty sure Chris Wallace Harish has not seen evidence for the 5-layered view in the Tantras. Maybe a modern Tantra, maybe last 300 or 400 years, where it got mixed with Vedanta and all this stuff. But in the old stuff, I've never seen it, and I'm pretty sure Harish said he's never seen it. And that is the model of the body that says you have an Annamaya kosha. Anna means food, so the food body, physical body. You have an Annamaya kosha. You have a Pranamaya kosha, the energy of life force that runs through it. You have a Manomaya kosha, the mind that runs that life force. Then you have, a whole bunch of things just popped up. So then after the Manomaya kosha, you have Vijnanamaya kosha, so a rarefied wisdom body, and then Anandamaya kosha, the bliss body. So this is a Vedantic view of the layers of the self. What I was introduced with in Tantra is 2 other types of models that were much more relevant, because someone has asked before during these sessions, what about all these layers of the body? How do we do practices for each one of them? What do they mean? And what does it relate to as far as different worlds and stuff like that? And, it's really kind of the wrong way to go, I think, in our practice, to think about all these different sheaths or layers of the body that we have and try to do practices for each one and think about strengthening and expanding each one. I don't think it's a very good path of practice, to be honest. The model I was introduced to is the 3-body model, basically, the Trikaya. You got you have the form of pure rising essence, deities and so on in your own energy body of that Parashakti. And then there's the essence itself, the 3 major Mahabindus. And that was really enough to work with, I think, for now. And then there was the Prayashtakam, or the 8 layers of the body, which is also in Tantra. Some Tantrikas teach it that this body is the first layer, then there's 7 layers out here. And I think these are good to ponder. And I do this in Trika Method. If you've taken Trika Method courses, I think it's good to ponder a little bit. But when we get too much hung up in these tantric bodies, it just doesn't lead to liberation, and it doesn't lead to any kind of attainment on a very deep level. There's no practicality to it. It seems like it's more theoretical and like from people that didn't really practice a lot, to be honest. So I wouldn't think of the body personally. I don't teach it that way. The Mahasiddha tradition doesn't teach it that way. Most of the yogins I practice with don't ever use it at all. Though it's funny, they'll switch gears and go out in public and give a lecture and talk about it to try to let people know that there's more than the physical body there. I think it's because they don't want to get into channels and chakras and bindus and different 45 different pranas and 5 elements, panchatattva and 36 tattva. I think they said this is just too much. So it's going to make it really easy and blow their minds and let them know that we have like 5 different parts inside of ourselves. So I've seen yogins who never talk about it in private teachings go out and then teach it in public. So it's quite strange. So we don't deal with that. Okay. But if you're thinking of a different map than the one I just said, then write in and please let me know. Burning new sense. Okay. I do 2 MAD. What's that? 2 meals within 6 hours and 18 hours fasting. I'm a keto. He's in keto. 2 meals within 6 hours and 18 hours fasting. Okay. Cool. So you're into fasting already. Now, for some people, the keto thing works miracles, especially for like nervous system disorders. I've seen some other disorders as well. For other people, it does terrible. It just doesn't work. So you got to play with it. You got to really work with it. And when we say keto, it's such a wide range of what you can eat and how you can, make keto work. Keto just means that you're in ketogenesis, which means you're burning fat for fuel. So basically that's what all of us want to do when we start getting healthy. We don't want to be on a carb-rich fuel diet all the time. So it's good to have it more balanced out, or all fat, or, protein and fat. So, okay, more of that when we get into the Ayurveda. That's a very complex topic, but thanks for sharing, Mr. Natural. Guru Seva sent in a question. What's the Trika Mahasiddha Yoga take on free will? There's a quote from Abhinavagupta that says, it's because of the mysterious power of grace that we do spiritual practice at all. Christopher Wallace, the scholar, also known as Harish, quoted in his group feed this idea. There was, in fact, a long thread with many, many, many people coming onto that thread talking about what is fate, what is free will, and Christopher shared his ideas on it, and I didn't agree with a lot of it, actually. So I think that's going to be another great thing we can talk about in the podcast with him. So to finish Guru Seva's question, he says, if this is the case, Abhinavagupta says it's a mysterious power of grace that makes us do spiritual practice at all. If this is the case, what's the role, if there is any, of our own effort to practice or to act differently from when we've taken non-virtuous conduct? In other words, to try to be a better person. To sum up, if there's no free will, what's our discernment? I really don't like black and white polarized teachings on view. There's only free will. There's only fate. Harish was, in my understanding of what he was writing on his thread, which I took exception to, was that it was sounding like there was only fate. And even when you think you're having a free will moment, that it's still only fate. And I find that hard to substantiate, to be honest, because, and he was proposing through a lot of other psychological research and so forth, that that's the truth, that this is the way it works. And I don't think it really works that way. So let's explore this for a moment. The other day, we explored it with fate and free will as in the levels of karma. Sanchita karma, prarabdha karma, kriyamana karma, agama karma. Sanchita karma, prarabdha karma being the fate aspect, and then kriyamana karma, agama karma being the free will aspect. But now let's look at it another way. I want to relate it to absolute view and relative view. What's most important is that we really understand the view. If we really understand our view really well, we're not going to waste time with practices and methods that don't work. that are outside the view, that are heretical or antithetical and won't give us the result we want. We will also, if we really understand the view, it takes us really deep into the correct orientation within the practices that we're doing. So when we read a teaching or hear a teaching, or even experience it for ourselves when we enter stage 7 for a moment, that there is no necessity of meditation or mantra or purification practice or yoga or anything, even meditation, even the most subtle conceptual forms of meditation. When we hear teachings that say that's unnecessary because grace does everything, grace is all there is, essence is all there is, and everything you do with your mind to approximate that experience of essence in yourself is making an object out of it. Using the mind necessarily produces an object. And since your essence is not an object, any activity, any sadhanas that you're doing to produce this effect will keep you from realizing your own free nature, your own essence, your own really essential free will. So let's look at this first. Let's look at this from this perspective. There's this idea, there's this concept, and it's accurate. It's an absolute view teaching. But here's the point. If everything is nothing but essence nature, and you're happy with that, you feel like that's fine. And here's the key point. Your mind is relaxed into natural presence. In natural presence, not discursive mind, not distracted from your own natural presence. But your natural presence, which is the absolute view, has absorbed your discursive mind. The mind that analyzes, the mind that calculates, the mind that thinks and judges and wonders and wishes and hopes and has emotions of fear and anger and sadness that are in reaction to a self-grasping. If that mind is no longer functioning, right, then you're not only, everyone has this nature, our own nature, our own essence, but not only are you having it like you're in touch with it, you're totally living it. It's absorbed your small mind. You're in the view so deeply that these things don't arise. You don't get negative reactive emotions. When thoughts occur that are good, they're seen and felt the same as thoughts occur that are bad. Now, if we fool ourselves and we're not in that state of natural presence, we're going to disengage. We can disengage and not participate in a rich experience of being alive. And it's very easy then to say, oh, I don't feel the negative effects of karma. I don't feel the good and bad. I don't have good thoughts versus bad thoughts. I don't feel any of that. I'm beyond all of that. I don't have attachments. I'm beyond all of that. It's very easy for us to say that in our minds, and certain kind of meditation can lead us to have that experience of that in our mind, but is it real? This is the question. So to hold an absolute teaching, like Harish was putting out from Abhinavagupta, to hold absolute teaching that Abhinavagupta or a great Dzogchen master or Wu-Wei Taoist master will give, where it says, every effort is ridiculous, don't do it. Every effort only takes you farther from your essence because you're looking for something that's already there. In one way of thinking, it's true. If, this is the big caveat that no one tells you, if you're in your natural presence already, you're fine. There's nothing else you need to do. You never have to meditate. You never have to chant. Don't have to generate compassion. You don't have to worry about anything. Why? Because in the absolute view, when you are living the absolute view, which means you have the absolute fruit, you're in the realization of the view, you're enlightened. All of the compassion, all of the generation of merit, all of the experience of the goodness and of essential goodness of being is already there. It's already self-evident. So there's no reason to accumulate. It would feel superfluous, strange to accumulate that which is already there, right? So in that way, that's kind of true. Now, that person who's in natural presence, who's very enlightened like this, they're living free will. They have no conditioning left. All the conditioning is gone. You could say they transformed it. You can say they dropped it. You can say they saw straight through it with the views, cutting power, a flame of discriminating wisdom, and realized there is no anything else but pure essence, nature, pure alive enlightenment, and they don't need to do anything anymore. Well, you can say it many different ways, but they're living in natural presence. So there's no more conditioned mind whatsoever. No more samsaric mind, no more nirvanic mind. Neither. So, of course, for that being, there's nothing to do. And for that being, everything is free will. Everything is free will. I don't know any of those people alive right now. I just don't. I don't know any stage 10 beings alive right now. Just having some cities does not show that you're in stage 10. So then what about the rest of us? Well, the truth is, when it comes to fate or free will, we have to actually apply a lot of free will to choose to practice sadhana. Now, the origin of that free will to choose to practice sadhana, I believe, is based on pure and simple sensing your actual situation and desiring to change it. If someone wants to say, well, that's Abhinavagupta saying that grace has to occur to you before you can practice for your liberation. You know, why we do spiritual practice? Because grace occurred, because we had Shaktipata. Great. I don't care. It's the same thing to me. At some point you realize this is ridiculous. If I want a different result, I have to do something different. And you start to examine why I feel this way. Why do I feel limited? Why do I feel like I'm suffering? Why do I feel, and then you seek out different methodologies to change that. One of those areas of methodology are the Dharma teachings. Trika Mahasiddha Yoga is one of those within the Dharma teachings. So there, I think for all of us who are not living 100% moment to moment in natural presence, we must be steeped in the view. We must intellectually apprehend what essence means and that we are essence. And dialoguing with our teacher about this a lot is very important when you come on retreat. And we have to have then what we're doing is, if we say, yes, I intellectually am starting to grasp what my essence is, then my practices I'm performing are within and framed by, part of, and as essence itself. Essence expressing as practice, as an old sutra that we use in our system says. No other time, no other place, just here, just now, essence expressing as practice. That's what we say. So now, when we have that idea that we really clearly understand the view, that we trust and have faith that that's how it is, but I'm not experiencing that. I'm not all the way in natural presence. So if we're humble and honest, we're not in natural presence for more than a few seconds or a few minutes a day maximum. Then we're left with, okay, well then what is it in between? Here's where the weirdness develops, especially on the internet. I've been watching this recently on Dzogchen, Mahamudra, Shaivist sites, this kind of thing. Okay, I'm not in natural presence. My conditioned mind is obviously still there, but I understand the view of natural presence. I understand the view of my own Svasvarupa, Shiva nature, Rigpa, that it's always there. What do I do? Now in the ignorant internet world says, well, since you know this, do nothing. Since you know the truth, just do nothing, just surrender, just let go. Because any effort you make to reach that which you know to be there already, that's uncontrived, will push you farther away from it. And that's not accurate. I don't think it's correct. I don't think it's comprehensive teaching. The more comprehensive and accurate teaching is, if I know my true nature to be this, but I haven't realized it yet, and it's not a continuous connection for me, I'm not in natural presence, more than like fleeting moments of the day during a practice or spontaneously, whatever, when my baby looks at me or something, then working with the constituents that are self-created and recognizing that they are self-created, working directly with those constituents to dissolve them so that they will not obscure my experience of my own essence. This is the only way. This is pragmatic, and this is free will, and it must be applied in this way. Our free will has to be applied in this way because essence isn't a God that makes you do something, right? So when I'm sitting in that view and I apply the methodology to directly meet my limitations, see them clearly, and dissolve them by visualizing, holding my breath, doing mantras, whatever it is, using a deity yoga practice to become that deity's energy, I've dissolved everything. As everything's dissolving, I'm getting freer. As I'm getting freer, there becomes more agama karma. I'm more open. And eventually it gets a lot easier to sit in deeper meditation and a lot easier for me to recognize my nature because the wind in the mind channels has been settled down finally in the heart, which generates these mind channels. And the wind has calmed down there. And also the perception that comes out through the eyes and projects the world is starting to be seen as that, just that. As all that's starting to happen, we're becoming more and more of who we really are. And in that context, with that orientation, doing hard practice, etc., but definitely doing practice in a step-by-step progressional manner is extremely valuable. And only a fool would say, skip this. Only a fool who's posing as a teacher would say, skip this. Having said that, there is occasionally a rare case where someone is born with such a high aptitude that they only need some very special instructions from the guru, special instructions from the lama, and they can then, boom, actualize all the rest of the way, all on their own after those instructions. So not really on their own, but they had such a high aptitude. They can just get a little bit of instruction and go. And they don't need to go through years and years of purification, then years and years of energy body work with data yoga or whatever. They are in the mandala immediately after the instructions from that guru, and usually they'll go into some kind of self-imposed retreat to just pull back and stabilize that experience that has been triggered by the pointing out instructions of that teacher. But that is such a rare condition. Super rare. So we don't want to speak to the rare, the one in 10 million sadhaks. We want to speak to us, most of us. So what's our take on free will then, Guru Seva? Why I'm practicing, whether grace touched me or whether I just woke up and realized I'm a mess, or whether I even pulled through past life experience from past life and woke up right into it and got going. To be quite honest, I think that was a lot of what impelled me. I didn't have a lot of religious examples around me. Certainly not. I had an abusive family I grew up in when I was a little boy in New York. And then finally, my mother threw my stepfather out when I was 2. It was awesome. And then we went back to Pennsylvania and lived in Amish country for 5 years. So I was around cows. I was around horses. I was around big fields. I was around farming. I was around Amish communities, but no huge religious presence. My mother, we didn't even go to church much during that period, actually. And she was a Catholic. My catechism didn't start yet. None of that stuff. We were just surviving. My mom was working a lot of jobs. My grandma was helping out. I had no relatives that were teaching me, preaching to me, trying to save me. Nothing. No Hindu yogi friends. But when I was about 5 or 6, my mom had a Cherokee boyfriend, and he taught me how to pray. He said to me, "Hey, would you like to learn how to pray?" I said, "That sounds cool." So he started teaching me how to pray, and I prayed on my own after that. But that's the only influence I had. But it was something interesting, though. I do believe that there was a lot brought from my past lives. It's the only way I can really understand it, because I can meet a teacher who has these teachings, and as they're teaching them to me, it's honestly like I read it the day before and we're going over a review. And that was what my first guru and my second lama, my first great lama, said to me too. I said, "What do you want me to teach?" And they said, "Well, pretty much you can just teach." And I was like, "What do you mean?" So they were acknowledging there was some contact from the past. So we then have that birth. It makes things easier. But it doesn't mean you're born enlightened. You still got to go through all the work. All the tulkus from the Tibetan system that are reincarnated masters still have to go through the whole system. So no matter what we bring through and how much we have ease to it, maybe we didn't have some grace moment in this lifetime, shocking moment, which put us on the path. I mean, I felt like I've always been on it, honestly. I've always been inquisitive. I've seen photos of myself when I was, 4, 5, and 6, sitting in lotus, looking around the room, looking at like, you're an alien in this world kind of thing. And the world did look like a dream to me at that time, but I didn't have Dharma understanding or Dharma teachings. So I think we practice for whatever reason. Let's say, here's the TMY view. It doesn't freaking matter why you're going to practice, as long as you're practicing. I mean, what got you started doesn't matter. Was it a Shaktipata, a moment of, oh my God, big epiphany opening? Or was it when the big epiphany opening came when you saw how horrible you were because you were an alcoholic, or you were cheating on your husband, or you were, whatever, you're in the mafia? It could have been terrible circumstances that bring you to your senses because you almost die or almost get your family killed, or you think this is untenable. I can't keep going this way. That could be a way that you start your practice. And someone says, "Oh, that's grace. That's Shiva. That's grace." Whatever. I don't care. A lot of this philosophizing about how we got here in karma, who made the first karma, why we start practicing, should we take the absolute or relative view? This is all the realm of philosophy. And I can talk it all day, but it's like eating a pizza. It's just for fun. It doesn't matter. What matters is the view, and that's philosophical, but it's not waxing philosophic. It's understanding things clearly and simply so that you can go and practice deeply and move into your practice in a much more deep way, in a very powerful way, right? So if we have this view, Trika Mahasiddha Yoga in general, the Mahasiddhas don't care why you're practicing, just practice. I mean, how you started. Of course, your motive of why you're practicing has to be very pure and continually purifies at each stage of the 12 stages of normal human process. But really, the origins of why you're practicing, how you got there, no one cares. It doesn't matter. What really matters is, do you finish the journey? And finishing the journey, for anybody listening to this, if you think you're going to do this by magic, just by relaxing all your tensions, and I'm going to be in the Shiva state, I'm going to know my Rigpa, good luck with that. Just good luck with that, because that's just not realistic. Let me give you another view on it. The highest understanding of relative and absolute, or fate and free will, is it doesn't matter. Just work. Just do your work and relax. Have the orientation that you already are essence, and now you're just bringing it out by calming the mind, etc., and moving deeper and deeper in this way. And then basically everything sorts itself out. The path is clearly laid out for us. All we have to do is follow along. Maybe one stage takes a long time. Maybe the next 3 go very quickly. But human beings don't really get to skip over a lot. Maybe you skipped over the first 4 stages in past life, and you enter this life pretty much a stage 5 being, powerfully going for it, wanting to know your essence, all this kind of stuff. Maybe you don't, but maybe you do. So it's not so important to know all these answers. When I talk about clear knowing and absolute clarity of view, I'm not talking about knowing a bunch of knowledge, like what are the panchakoshas, the 5 layers of the body, which I don't even think exist, and what was the very first karma? If karma is going on cause effect forever, what was the very first karma? And how did I get here? How did I get stuck here? Like, we're like Buddhists in that way. We don't care. Yogins don't care. Yogins and Buddhists share a lot of common ground. Like, we don't care how we got stuck. We know we're stuck. We know we're suffering. Then someone teaches the liberating view. You're absolute essence already. You're Buddha nature already. You're Rigpa. You're what? Awesome. You're the Tao already. Awesome. Awesome. But then if I'm awake and clear, I realize that's not enough. But that's great to know. And now everything I do is contextualized within that. So I will never put it outside myself. I will never practice for something outside myself. So remember, when we're practicing, it is our free will, but it's our free will to express our essence. And we know that our expression of that essence will get better and better, purer and purer, as we just do it more and relax into it more simultaneously. Okay? So if there's no free will, what's our own discernment? I think you're asking about, so then moral conduct. Where does moral conduct come in with all this? I think this is really important too. When people start to think, I'm essence, there's only essence, there's nothing else but essence, blah, 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 then they start to act kind of, and they read some books and they say, oh, there's crazy wisdom out there. Oh, really? What's crazy wisdom? They start to think about my activities. I read an Abhinavagupta quote. I heard Harish give a teaching. There's no such thing as karma. There's no such thing as real limitation. Essence could never be limited. Essence is everything anyway. So even your limited thoughts are essence. And we go into it so much in the absolute teachings and we lose our grounding. And then people will start to act in immoral ways, like separating out from people, like a hierarchy can develop too of superiority and God realm. We lose our compassion, we lose our wisdom, and people can harm each other, and actually harm in a way that's quite sad, by going into this absolute view too much. I always use this example, but it's just so good, so sad, but so good, where one of my students that I had for a time hit his wife so hard that she had a huge black eye, rainbow colored egg on her eye, couldn't open her eye for a few days. And he was lost in these absolute teachings about there's no use to sadhana. We just have to relax and be in our essence and all this kind of thing. And, it's sad. It's a really sad thing. He was lost there so much that he thought, and he told me with all his own belief, that essence moved his hand to strike his wife. That essence did it through him because she needed that lesson. It was not his thought. It was not his conditioning. It was pure free will happening, We can lose our moral compass really quickly that way. I think you practice the highest level that you can for what stage you're at. You keep the highest level view and you keep refining that view and studying that view of the absolute. But you practice like hell in the relative. And you just say, keep your humility, keep your modesty, and keep the vows. Just be a good person. Just be a good person. Someone says, oh, being a good person won't get you enlightened. In the absolute view, no. But in the relative view, yes. Because being a good person is going to cut your karma down, which is going to make you freer to practice and express your essence. Pretty simple. So anyway, that covers those two questions. That maybe it all came in today. So it all came in? If anybody wants to write in, now's your time. You can have a moment or two while if anyone's online right now, I can't tell. 28 people. Well, 28 people are here, but no one's talking. All right, let's go. Shut me up. Give me a good question. 27. We just lost one. I didn't see those little numbers. Anybody wish to ask a question, or are we going to close it out right here? Pragmatic questions about practice or review are good. Hello, Padma. Arizona COVID numbers going up through the roof right now. Hide in the mountains. Get away, girl. Don't believe all that Republican stuff that's going on. Like, if you don't test, you won't see the numbers go up. Can you believe, Mr. Trump? Did the guy ever read a book? No. Did he ever go to school? I mean, can you imagine saying something like, here's how we control COVID. Don't do so much testing. Then you won't find out there's so many infections. Then you'll have lower numbers. Are you kidding me? My daughter thinks that's retarded. Wow. I can't believe it. That guy is an idiot, an imbecile. Okay. Any questions coming in? None. Just saying hello. That's cute. Hello. Aha. Crystal, of course. 3 in a row. Holy moly. I hear many people talk about the practice of a lineage like this as cultural appropriation when done by non-Indians or non-white people. I love this question. I love this one. To me, it seems that spiritual teachings know no cultural boundaries. What do you think? You know what I think. I'm from New York. Those people can stick it where the sun doesn't shine. All this PC stuff about cultural appropriation is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Now, I guess there's some boundaries I do agree to around it. Like, I guess there's some boundaries. Like when you take a culture on and you really look fake or try to fake it like it's your home culture, that's weird. But when it comes to spiritual culture and religion, I mean, one of the most beautiful things I remember from, and I'm not a fan of Islam as a religion at all. I think it's a religion of violence. And even though you got a little bit of peace peppered here and there in the Quran, it's a pretty violent, misogynistic kind of situation. And I'm no fan of it, but there's a great thing in the movie about Malcolm X when he goes on the Hajj, I'm pretty sure if I remember, and he was blown away because he saw Chinese people, Kazakhstan people, South African people, American people, European people, and he saw all these different people doing this Hajj together at Mecca, and it blew him away. And I thought, yeah, that's right, because that part is really beautiful of this story, because spirituality is human. And this is what I love about the Mahasiddha path. It's a human path of realization. So when someone says only Indians should do yoga, or only Indians should practice Tantra, or only Tibetans should do Dzogchen, something like that, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Just counter that by just saying, bye. Every time you hear that, just walk away. That is ridiculous. His Holiness, the 33rd Memory Treason of the worldwide Bumpo religion, and a master Dzogchen teacher, who was my Dzogchen Lama, my heart Lama. He said to me, Yongzhong Pabo. He had a big voice like this, Yongzhong Pabo. So he named me Yongzhong Pabo. Yongzhong Pabo, you should do translation of this tradition into English. Take it on fully. And I said, wow, that seems wild. Why do you want me to make all these prayers in English and all these practices in English? Only mantras should remain, because mantras are power packages, phonemic power packages. They can't be changed. But every prayer should be understood. Every teaching should be understood. In fact, he gave me a text to translate. It's about 400 pages. He said, this could be knocked down to 75 pages. A lot of fluff in there. You guys don't need that these days. And I said, that's pretty cool, very progressive. And I'm working on that text for when we teach Dzogchen in the future. And I was impressed. And he said he could tell I was a little bit surprised. And he said, well, this is Tibetan. Dzogchen is Tibetan now, right? And I said, yeah. He said, no, it's not Tibetan. We practice Dzogchen, but anybody can practice Dzogchen. It's human. He said, we got it from Zhangzhung. Zhangzhung was a part of, as a separate country north of Kashmir, which Tibet annexed through war, through a nasty, tricky thing they did. And they took it. And then when they took this Dzogchen from Zhangzhung into Tibet, it became Tibetan. And then the Buddhists said, hey, we really like this. Certainly it's not Buddhism, but it doesn't go against Buddhism really, a little bit, but not much. So they just stuck in as the 9th vehicle of the 9 vehicles for Nyingma teachings. And the Bumpos also put it at the top of their hit list as well. So he said this was in Zhangzhung language. And we had to take it and make it into Tibetan language. Now you make it into English. I'm like, cool, that's great. And he goes, and before Zhangzhung, it was in Persian. His opinion was it came from somewhere like Persia or Greece. So, he thought it was in other languages before that. So cultural appropriation, that just cracks me up. People just get crazy with stuff these days. There's obvious cases where it looks ridiculous to be appropriating someone else's culture. But this is not the truth with spiritual work at all. So let's laugh at that. Let's all laugh at that. Mr. Natural. I like that name, Mr. Natural. Do you know that was a WWE wrestler's name when I was a kid? Mr. Natural. I like your down-to-earth view, but how does Ayurveda fit in here? Ayurveda. I'm pretty sure you mean Ayurveda, although you wrote Ayurveda. I think you mean the healthcare Ayurveda, or do you mean something different? Oh, you wrote afterwards. Ayurveda. Ayur, A-Y-U-R. Ayur in Sanskrit means life. Vedanam, Ayuhu Vedanam. So Ayuhu Vedanam put together, Ayurveda. Ayuhu means life. Vedanam means the science of, or the science of life. So it's the science of life. Where does life and science of life fit in this down-to-earth view? Right in it, right in it. We should all understand our health, all understand our health care. We should all exercise. We should all eat well. We should enjoy life. We should follow Ayurvedic principles. And that's why my wife and I said today, we were pretty sure. We selected dates and everything, didn't we? Let me say when the Ayurveda is coming out. It's going to be what, 5 weekends? Ayurveda. It's going to be 5 weekends in July? June, July? But we picked it already. It's 5 weeks.
Yeah, it's going to be
4 hours on a Saturday, every Saturday for 5 weeks.
I think we're starting August 15th to September 5th.
That's Ayurveda?
Yeah.
So as far as my wife can remember right now in our frazzled mind state, August 15th to September 5th. That's 4 weeks? Okay. And that should, or 4 or 5 weeks, and that's going to be the online training for Ayurveda. So we really dig Ayurveda. I was trained in it fully. You see, let me explain something to you. In real tantric yoga, not tantra like from the textbooks where you do pujas and you imagine your Shiva. That's cool. I don't think it works very well. I think people delude themselves a lot, but it's a nice religion. But in tantric yoga, which is Mahasiddha yoga, which knows no sectarian boundaries, Tibetan Vajrayana, Kashmir Shaivism, Bumpo, Dzogchen, boom. Yes. Wu Wei Taoism, yes. Okay. In that way of understanding this view, that's the grandmother. The view and practice of realizing yourself is the grandmother. What then are the children of that grandmother and the grandchildren of that grandmother? Well, the children are 2 big children right here. You can say 3, okay? First is yoga, Kundalini Hatha Yoga. Tibetans have their version, Indians have their version. They're both very potent. In fact, for some of you out there that are very big Dzogchen Tibetophiles, and you're really wowed by the Tibetan yoga, I think it's awesome too, but I got to tell you, my teacher had me teaching our yoga at his monastery. He thought that when I explained Adi Yoga, our whole system of Kundalini Hatha Yoga, which we call Adi Yoga, he's like, that's absolutely brilliant and more doable. More people can do that, because to do Tibetan yoga well, you got to start when you're pretty young, because it's hard on the body. I think you've seen it. Jumping in the air into full lotus, slamming down from 4 feet in the air. If I did that one time, I'd rupture a disc, and I'm a wrestler. So, I'm a lifetime wrestler. So I don't think it's that helpful. So the supportive practices to this great practice, to this great vidya of Mahasiddha yoga is Kundalini Hatha Yoga, astrology, Jyotish, and Ayurveda. If you know a little bit of these three sciences, it does so much to help your practice. I really mean it. Like, this is the core support system, the support knowledge that you need. And I am going to teach you those things. There's one of the things that makes our school unique, and one of the things you're going to notice about it when you compare us to other schools. And here I'm not doing a one-upmanship. I'm just trying to give you an understanding of what makes this oral lineage so powerful is that we have these three supportive teachings in our system. We have normal Jyotish, normal Vedic astrology from Hart Defoe's lineage, one of the greatest teachers ever to live in modern times on Jyotish. And I'm so blessed to have studied with him. And I think he's fantastic. And then I have Mahakala astrology, another level up sort of tantric revealed astrology. We have the primal Ayurveda. What's primal Ayurveda? Well, we have Ayurveda from the Brahmanic perspective, which I learned from my early teachers. But then, well, actually, my early teachers practiced Siddha medicine, which is a different kind of Ayurveda. It's kind of like all rules are off, and it's a lot more tantric, a lot more elevated esoteric practices, and not so hung up on vegetarianism and using burnt ashes, a lot of things like diamonds and rubies and emeralds and sapphires and gold and silver and platinum and mercury and so forth, even using mercury itself mixed with herbs and things, instead of just plants, right? Instead of just medicine. So primal Ayurveda is very powerful. It understands tantric yoga and links up to tantric yoga very, very well in this sense. And of course, Kundalini Hatha yoga is because we have a body, we have an energy system, and we have a mind. Why only use one entry point? Use the body energy entry point as well, and the mind will come. Because the body and energy are much easier to work with than just the mind, actually. So these are the great supportive practices that we have in our system. And yes, I'm very happy to say, Mr. Natural, that we are going to teach. I'm going to go really into teaching Ayurveda. In fact, I've been talking about it now every class. I'm going to do the body of light training for 3 years if we get enough people interested in it. And it's quite an incredible approach to healing, which, yeah, it's just really, its time has come. It's really incredible. I cannot wait to get into it, to share all the depth of the shamanic practices and knowledge I learned, and all the Ayurveda I learned, the Siddha medicine, the deity practices. There are deity healing practices, and then the ultimate level practices as well for healing, all this healing stuff. I spent most of my life in the healing realm. Although people know me most as a Dharma teacher, I spent most of my time studying with healers as well as yogins for good reasons. Jackie. Here, my feed keeps cutting out. Okay. If you get this, can you talk about nonviolence in the view? Okay. Ahimsa, or ahimsa, more correctly, ahimsa, to not harm. To not harm is not only the Hippocratic Oath for doctors, which I took, but it's also an extremely important principle of everything. Now, we have two ways we can look at virtues always. We can say, I'm not going to harm you. I'm not going to harm you. Or I'm going to do something positive, right? I'm going to benefit you. I'm going to love you. I'm going to heal you. I'm going to have compassion. We can look at these two ways. So nonviolence is core to our view. You're going to rack up serious karma if you have violence toward. Amazed at how many people say they're spiritual practitioners and wish others harm. I'm amazed, when I see people write on the internet harmful things about other people, speak harmful things about other people. And I don't mean challenging a debate, like challenging a view, like a teacher challenges a view of another teacher. That's fine. That should happen. That's how we refine our view. And students find which teaching they really want, which path. I'm talking about when people get on the internet or write books and just slam each other. It's like, are you kidding me? Did you not learn Dharma 101? You're supposed to love everybody. And if you have a disagreement with them, you try to work it out. And if you can't, you don't vengefully go on the internet forever and what's it called? Troll them. Is that right, honey? Trolling? You don't go on and troll people forever and chase them around and lock them into your idea of how bad they are and try to tell everybody else how bad they are. The Kabbalah, Hasidic Jew Kabbalah tradition has a very powerful teaching about this. And so does my Cherokee ancestors. They said, both said, never speak ill about a person that a person has never met yet. So let's say you're asking about a teacher and you never met that teacher yet. Now, I mean a real teacher. I don't mean someone who's raping students, punching them, weird stuff that I've heard that goes on in weird cults. I'm talking about a real verified teacher, and they have their own methodology. You hear some good stuff about them, some bad stuff about them. Well, you're not, if that person has never met that teacher, I say, look, just figure out for yourself. Read about the teacher, be forewarned, be forearmed, go see them yourself, but be aware, and then choose. That's simple. If I say, again, a teacher that I think is a good person, but maybe I have a difference of opinion about their teaching, their practice, the way they teach, their pedagogy, whatever. If I pollute that person's mind towards that person before they go to them, and if I've ever done that in my life, I confess and apologize right now to the Mahasiddhas. It's not a good thing to do. We shouldn't do that. Never poison someone's view of somebody before they meet them. They're going to come in preconceived on the negative. It's not a good idea. So our view of ahimsa is very important in our tradition, in that we should have this sense of, okay, maybe I can't generate compassion all the time, but what I can do is stop harming. So ahimsa, I'm going to stop harming. I'm going to stop harming everything. Even the animals I eat, they shouldn't be harmed. I can kill them if I eat animals. I can kill them with sacredness and feel the gratitude for eating them if that's my thing, like a native tradition would do. But I can't harm them. The way animals are harmed today is just horrible. It's just incredible. So non-harm is a backbone of our work. Look, everything comes down to wisdom, knowing your essence, knowing the essence of everything, that's wisdom. Knowing the eternal from the temporary, that's wisdom. And compassion and love. And that's non-harming. Wisdom and compassion and love, right? So we have to have that. It's core to what we are. It's one of the wings of the swan of enlightenment. You have wisdom and you got compassion. It has to be there. Okay. I probably went on that a little bit too much, but they can never go on too much about compassion. So please stop running each other down. Please stop being social justice warriors. And the worst part about that is how cowardly everybody is who does that. Somebody runs me down and I meet him in person. I run into him in America or Germany or wherever, and they're running me down because they don't like how I teach Tantra or something. Oh, they're just like a pussycat all of a sudden. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? We used to say when I was a kid, you go to a bar and if a guy drinks too much and starting fights, we used to call those beer muscles. I think now we have internet muscles or web muscles. Everybody has web muscles. They can say what they want on the web, but will they want to have a debate with that person? Will they want to really find out whether their view is correct or whether they're in the hell realm, demon realm, and just love, attacking people that they've distanced themselves from love? Revenge is not love. And revenge against somebody who hasn't harmed anybody, it's even worse. So we have to really love, we have to really have ahimsa all the time. And I think the internet's made a really bad place, made it really easy for people to slip into the hell realm and lose their love while they're playing at being spiritual. Kamala, how are you? Could you riff on virtue? Could I riff? Give me my guitar. Could I riff on virtue and merit? Virtue. We have to accumulate virtue. How do we do that? We remain in the view and we conduct ourselves that way. View, method, and fruit. In the end, the fruit is our conduct. What if our conduct and our fruit, our view are one? What if we live our view? That's simple. Like I just said in the last answer. What if I live love? I mean, I really don't harm people. I really don't. I really do my best. It feels natural, but I really don't harm people. I'll call a spade a spade. I'll call things out when I see things that are wrong, that are damaging or hurting other people just to benefit others. You know what I mean? But when it comes to harming, I don't have that in my bones. I'm not a harming kind of person. I'm a martial artist for sure. And I've had professional fights and I've done all that. It looks like we lost the connection, but it's back. But that doesn't mean I would harm somebody. Harm is like, let's go back to the 10 Commandments. Do you know they don't say you won't kill? It doesn't say thou shalt not kill. Someone who knows Hebrew can write into us what this says. But when I studied religion, because I did study deeply into Judaism, Christianity, Catholicism, etc., a little bit of Islam, my studies of the ancient Hebrew said, it said, thou shalt not murder. Thou shalt not murder, that's harm. Because in life, things have to die so other things can live. If you go to war, certainly you have to kill. If someone's trying to invade your country, you have to protect yourself. That's just life. but you don't have to murder them. So murder has with it the intention to harm, the intention of the other outside myself. But if I kill knowing that my brother is my brother in essence, we both have the same Shiva essence, that's not murder. That's killing. If a foreign invading group come in. So I think accumulating merit is extremely important, but we do it through virtuous conduct, but we do that by expressing the view. The deeper we know the view, please, people, if you have access to our 21 precepts, it's on the Facebook group, isn't it? So you go through the files on Facebook group and download 21 precepts, read them all once a week, practice one of them deeply that you're not doing well with for that week, and really work on it. Become a good human being. Character change is possible. People say character change is not possible. That's not true. I know in my own life it's possible. My character has changed. Absolutely has changed. You can too. So we have to develop our virtue. We have to develop our merit. And I think that's wonderful. Thank you for asking, Kamala. Crystal's burning up. Okay. Ayurvedic medicine. Yes, very good spelling. Divyam, your recommendations to understand the law of karma better. Which course? We do it. We teach that in either Foundations of Trikamasa Yoga course or in Preliminaries. And I can't remember because it's so many videos. We're both stuck in it for a moment. We think it's the Preliminaries. And the website is quickly coming out now. It's being merged with the bank, and the payment gateway should be open real soon. And you'll learn about these different models of karma. We use 3 different models of karma. So that would be a long discussion. And I've actually given it in the past few classes. I bet you there are people, Divyam, in the Facebook group, like Kendra, Matthew, some astute students who've listened to every video that I've given on YouTube and know every thread on the Facebook group because they've been there from the beginning, and they're really, really good students. They could probably tell you which videos I discussed those karmas in. They're probably out there on YouTube as well and Facebook. So let's look at those. I don't mean to blow it off. I'm really sorry I can't go into it deeper, but this class has been going for an hour now, and I did cover that recently in 2 other classes. So we'll get you, hopefully you find it on video. If not, ask it again. Or the website. Yes, for sure. Guillermo, in the game, Snakes and Arrows. In the game, Snakes and Arrows. Is that Snake and Ladders? Is that the same thing? We have entertainment as one of the virtues of the world. Understanding life as a game all gets more fun. How do we differentiate the entertainment that manifests the essential of entertainment that shows some attachment or vice? How do we differentiate the entertainment that manifests? Guru Save, if you're here, you could translate this for me. You could give him a quick call and do it in Portuguese and then put it into English. How we differentiate the entertainment that manifests? I guess the enjoyment that manifests the essential of entertainment that shows some attachment or vice. Talk about music. I know you love music. I know you play music, and I love music too. And I want to start playing again. So I'm all set now. I got my guitar from Thailand. The game, Snakes and Arrows, you have entertainment as one of the virtues of the world. I kind of missed the essential point there, and I don't want to take too much time on it because I missed it. The essence, not essential. How do we differentiate entertainment that manifests the essence of entertainment? That shows some attachment or vice. See, I'm lost there too. I don't get it. So I'm sorry. Reword it. Get it down. Maybe talk to Guru Seva if he's around on there, or Anuloma right now, one of those cats, or Durga Murti, and maybe somebody can get back to me on it. Sorry about that. I love the question. We'll get into it once we figure it out. Cool. Different schools of Ayurveda. I'll look more into it. Yes. Kendra Toodle. Amazing. Cool. Yes. Jeff Karsten. Hi, Dharma. Could you give an outline of your personal meditation practice? That's my secrets, man. Do you apply centering practices like following the breath, mantra, etc., or do you follow a more open Dzogchen style? Okay, great question. Let me just put something out here right away. Dzogchen, I'm a great student of Dzogchen, meaning not great as in I'm good at it. I'm deeply interested in Dzogchen. I studied with one of the world's greatest teachers, one-on-one, every summer, every winter. 2 to 8 weeks just with him. He's right over my shoulder. He's the greatest. And I love him so much. He's passed away, but he's always with me. And let me tell you, Dzogchen is not some big open state. For everybody listening, If you think, wow, man, I'm done with all this relative practice, I'm just going to sit open, Dzogchen. Actually, if I showed you the curriculum of Dzogchen, it's quite long. And there are many, 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 many practices that have forms to do. The idea that we sit just open, we just sit in open contemplation, that's the highest meditation, or that's Dzogchen. We just sit with our eyes open. That is not actually the highest part of the path. The path has some, I would say, I haven't counted it recently, but about 35 steps. And I'm not talking about Nundro and all that stuff. Take that out. You still have like 35 steps. Once you achieve what's called Mahamudra, Jeff, which is not just tranquil abiding, it's much higher than just tranquil abiding, right? There's awareness practices, and then there's sorting out the nature of mind from your discursive mind through practices. And then there's stabilizing the natural abiding, just stabilizing natural abiding. That's not your own nature still. And then you have to go into all the different levels of stabilizing the Mahamudra or Trekcha. And then from there, you got to go into Tugel, which is integrating with light, integrating with everything, becoming realistically that you're seeing everything as the light mandalas all the time, 24/7. So, I mean, there's a lot of stages in this. When people say, oh, I'm just sitting open, I'm doing Zazen, I'm doing Wu Mei, not Wu Mei, that's my master. I'm doing Wu Wei meditation called Cuo Wang, in Chinese, Cuo Wang, sitting, forgetting. Or I'm doing Dzogchen, just sitting open. Or I'm doing Kashmir Shivas, Shambhavapaya, just resting in my nature of Shiva. That's not the end. And that's only one practice. To say that that defines any of those traditions I just mentioned is incorrect, actually. So let's know that first of all. That's really important. Now, an outline of my personal meditation practice. Well, I'm on a certain trajectory and I'm following it and it's where I'm at. So yes, it's meditation. It's meditation, plus further rounds of purification practice. So how can I try to explain this? Let's do it this way, Sri Jeff Carson. If I am a martial artist, which I am going to not only work at the highest level, I'm going to drill basics. In fact, from getting to the highest level, when I graduated that level, I realized, oh my God, it's all in the basics. And then I do the basics. And I do such a boring martial art practice because it's just the basics. It's the intermediate people that do all the wild, beautiful, amazing martial arts stuff that isn't very high yet, but they think it is. And I was one of those people. But now I realized it's the basics. So in the same way, my practice now focuses on, I still do Kundalini Hatha Yoga, but I'm not trying to awaken my Kundalini anymore. That's the old days. Been there, done that. But then why still practice? Because I have a body, because I have an energy system, and it can express essence. That's why. So I still do everything. Okay. And then why do we just still do mantras? Why would you still do purification? Because I don't see rainbows yet. If I don't see rainbows yet, I can still do purification. So I'm in my third round of purification practice of doing 100,000 plus of each of the sections of the foundation practices. So I'm in my third round of doing that. I've done it in two different country systems, an Indian system and Tibetan as well. So I do my meditation practices that are scaled in Dzogchen, the Dzogchen meditation practices. And I think most essential for every level of 12-stage view, most essential in a Mahasiddha Yoga way is the practice of integration. We have seated meditation practice and we have integration practice. And where I see people drop the ball, big time where they drop the ball, is integration practice. There's a wrong orientation, incorrect orientation, that if I just sit on that cushion and I do the mantras and I accumulate my 200,000 and with total focus, whatever, that I'm going to transform all my karmas and be liberated. It's a great idea in the beginning, and it's like a carrot on the end of the stick that keeps us going. So if I do all these seated practices, I do all these, kind of things, and then I go out in the world and I blow it, I get reactive immediately with my mind and my emotion and so forth. It means I don't understand integration practice. And at whole retreats, I talked the other day to the group, the foundation practice group, how I did an 18-month solo retreat. Only came out of the retreat 2 or 3 times for something really short and went right back because it freaked me out. I had to do something logistical and I had to go back. And then finally left the retreat. But when I left the retreat, so integration practice is, I think, more important than seated practice. And I believe that a very astute practitioner with great power of awareness and great focus can go higher in their spiritual practice through integration practice than even doing meditation practice alone on the cushion. I really do. But when you put them together, when you fuse your meditation, yoga, you're lost. On me, it seems to be going okay. We still really get that. Like in the Mahasiddha yoga tradition, we still really get integration practice and what it is. And we have techniques, we have ways of doing it. And we retreat, when we come on retreat with students, we use integration. It's extremely important, right? So my integration practice is pretty comprehensive, where everything in my life is brought into the view in this way, in a very active, conscious way, and techniques are applied. And then otherwise I'm doing, higher Dzogchen meditations. And sometimes I use meditations from a Shakta Shaiva background too, as appropriate when needed. And my Taoist background too. I mean, this is the thing about Mahasiddha yoga. Once you start getting in the higher stages, you just use what works. It's all just tools, use what works. But we have to understand the layout. So that covers it a bit. Yeah, I don't want to give detail that happened. There you go. Integration practice. Oh, broken message again. Another week or two, we have red.com. Okay, so we're back on again. I'm sorry, we're having a lot of problems with the internet right now. But I just answered Annalisa's question, how do I stay on the path, right? Yeah, I know. I'm looking right at it. So this, how to stay on the path, we covered with the integration, okay? The nature of the energy to engage in practice beyond very simple prayers, which I rely on daily, is not available. At the same time, the Dharma is my love, passion. How can I work with my situation in an effective way with my current limitation? Well, it's really quite easy. And here's the principle of experiencing in that moment. The founding principle is you have to pause. You have to not react. You have to disengage from an emotional conditioned reaction, a mental conditioned reaction. A person pushed a pause button and you have to look inside. You have to look at the origin. You have to be in that situation so completely, and you have to have non-resistance. So you invoke non-resistance. So if you're so tired, let's say, Annalisa, and you're laying around with your current condition of your body, then you lay around and you just examine it. You examine your feeling. You examine what the mind thinks about it. You examine the source of what the mind is thinking about it. You go deeper into how the mind could even think about that. And you work your way back to your. That's the key. More techniques on retreat and so on. When is your website going live? I don't know. It looks like 2 or 3 weeks, we're thinking, possibly. Okay, we really have no idea. We really have no idea because we're in the bank's hands. You know, when you're in the hands of a bank of a third world country, and this really is third world down here, you really don't know. They tell you they're coming in a week to fix something on the house, and they're here in 6 weeks. So, yeah, we don't know. But it's in their hands, which is the last step. So that's great. Appreciates the art that manifests the Dharma from the art that binds us. Oh, good. That's great. When I'm moved by art, damn, connection again. When I'm moved by art, I'm moved precisely because it's reflecting essence so deeply and it's directing me back to my own essence so deeply. So that's the key of what makes it different. You know, is it coming from essence or is it coming from our minds? Now, until we're in natural presence all the time, our art, no matter how artistic we think we are and how inspired we think we are with our improvisation, it's not going to be coming from essence. It's all our training too. So what's better to do is dedicate our pieces to the sacred, lift your mind and your heart towards the sacred, try to bring that level of understanding of your art, whether it's painted art or sculpture, or they can walk past if they want. You can walk past if you need to. So you can bring that level of dedication of the artwork into your art That's what I would do in the beginning, because you can't say we're in natural presence and then art flows out. That happens occasionally, which is beautiful for artists. But that's what the artist is chasing all the time, right? They're a sadhak in their own right. But when you really chase it in the right way, you pay attention to really doing your practice, getting your skills as an artist to refine and refine and refine. So eventually, when the artistic nature pours through, it has a vocabulary to speak to the public through that art. So dedicate it to the sacred, keep refining your skills, have a game plan. And if, as long as you're dedicating it towards it, and you sit down to consciously write a song for the divine, and it's not about you, that's the key, right? We're in the selfie era. Lose the selfies. Make it all about essence. That kind of music kind of is gone these days, and art. That's not around much. Louise Liu, Dharma, could you talk a little about the perception of cyclic time from the four perceivers' perspective? Is there a feeling of being stuck in a loop, almost like a vice we cannot beat? Cyclic return time could be experienced. This is one of the four perceivers: forward time, reverse time, cyclic return time, and no time. So if you've had those lectures, great. If not, hang in there. Cyclic return time, the third level of time, which is entering the non-dual experience of perceiving. When cyclic return time is manifesting through us, but coming out in samsara because we haven't done our practice yet to a degree we're experiencing natural presence, maybe don't even understand the view that well yet, we're going to experience cyclic return time like a bad nightmare that keeps returning. A Groundhog Day experience that isn't happy, isn't good, isn't nirvanic, right? It's samsaric and suffering. So so you could be experiencing cyclic return time, but you wouldn't be experiencing it as a realized being if it's got that kind of suffering involved with it yet, that kind of conditioning and suffering. Okay, so that's how it works with cyclic return. It is definitely a feeling of being stuck in a loop, but there's no outside predator, no outside oppressor that is forcing you into this loop. Louisa, you got to get this. Shivanandani, you are in that loop. You are choosing the wrong choices. We are all choosing the wrong choices when we're in that cyclic return time. The grace is to see that I'm in the cyclic return, but I'm not doing well. That can wake us to F up. Whoa, I'm at this place again. Another bad relationship, another bad job, another house I moved into that I didn't need, another thing I bought that I didn't need. Whatever your cyclic return is for you, something can show you that. But that cyclic return time is not being experienced in its essence. It's being experienced in its contracted form. And that contracted form comes from our poor choices. And we are projecting and perceiving this world as cyclic return of negativity due to our own conditioning. So please, if that's what you're experiencing, celebrate that you figured it out and get on that path and really work it and get through it and get unstuck. Yeah. Julia R. Julia Ramsey. Hi, I've been visualizing the TMY light body, chakras, bindus, channels. Isn't it beautiful? And the mandala, beautiful throughout the day. If lying down, does the light body or mandala structure change form or function? Is it okay to visualize it lying down? Absolutely, Julia. It's beautiful that you're keeping that visual as a second attention as much as you can. Don't let it disengage you from this world, because that body that you're seeing does manifest even this physical body. That's the beauty of it. See it as one. Okay. So yes, you can do it lying down. I do it no matter what. I see this all the time. I don't even have to generate it. It's just there all the time. And I think we're done. Do you have any more? No. Okay, everybody. That was a great Yogi to Yogi. Hope you enjoyed it, and see you at the next one. Till then,